Let's begin and discuss a little bit about what lean is. And I've prepared a few notes about lean thinking, where it derives from, and what it means to government operations all across the country. First, a little bit, I said I was going to describe something about the organization that I direct. I'm the executive director for the Maryland World Class Consortia. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is enjoying its 21st year now, helping organizations of all kinds, both public and private sector in the state, to understand tools and principles like this and apply them in the various things that they do. So we were originally spun off from Maryland's Department of Business and Economic Development, Commerce today, and our original charter was really focused on the private sector and more tightly on the manufacturing industry. But very soon after the organization started and we began to gather together companies that were interested in lean and applying it to what they do, we began to attract businesses other than manufacturers. And so we accommodated that. Basically, all of these techniques really apply to many different varieties of processes. And then we expanded further, and in 2009, we began to turn our attention to the public sector, government, military, nonprofit organizations. And so that has been a very rich exchange. Every time that we have expanded our scope and included more people at the table, the variety and the richness of the discussions, the learnings that people have been able to take away have grown accordingly. So with respect to our organization, I'd say that a few of the things there that I'd underscore. Number one, we've continuously expanded our scope, not in terms of the type of organizations that we work with, but also in the depth of what it is that we're focusing on. From simple economic development to really improving society. So we have small nonprofit charitable organizations as our members. We have public school systems in the state as our members. We have the Maryland Science Center as one of our members. These techniques, as we'll discuss today, really apply to all fields of human endeavor. And more broadly, these are techniques for improving everything that people do, including the society of which we're a part. The other thing that I'll point out is that we're not simply focused on providing training and consulting. We're really there to help create cultures of continuous improvement. So as quickly as we can make ourselves obsolete, honestly, as an organization, the more quickly that we can help you acquire these tools and understand these principles and do these things in-house with your own internal consultants, we're looking to make our external consultants obsolete in that way. And so I think over time we've been very successful in doing that. The number of organizations we've touched, I've lost count, but is approaching now 400 over our tenure. So we're all really about lean transformation. And we define that as simply transforming processes through people who are focused on the processes of which they are a part. And again, it's all with the ultimate aim of producing durable cultures of continuous improvement. So I've been using this term lean a few times now, and it should have something here that explains exactly what this is. Lean thinking is a term that came out of a study in MIT by a researcher, and I guess we have that person, whoever that is, to blame for this term, because honestly, it's a little bit deceptive. Whenever we say lean, I think instantly many people's minds jump to an image that is thin and hollow and gaunt, and we're taking something away from, and nothing really could be further from the truth. Lean, if you think about the other image that that presents, is fit, adaptable, strong, capable, and that's really what we're trying to do with organizations. So the definition that you see in this box up here is one that comes from kind of the book that really kicked it all off and popularized this, Lean Thinking, written in 1996. And so that definition there has 5 key terms in bold: value, value stream, flow, pull, perfection. And I mentioned the wide variety of organizations that we work with. If you can imagine my day as director going into each one of these very, very different organizations and saying something to the leaders there that is useful and insightful about how it is that they need to improve the performance of their people. It's not that I'm an expert on all of these operations, far from it. The fact is that these principles, value, value stream, flow, pull, perfection, are universal. They apply to all the different things that people are doing in these very different organizations. So I guess that's the first thing to really understand about Lean, is to kind of dig deeper and get your head wrapped around these 5 key principles. Because everywhere you go in all these different organizations, it's people interpreting what these principles mean to them, to what they do, and then responding accordingly. So that's a pretty good definition, and a simpler one down there is more recent. The permanent struggle to flow value to one customer, which I think if you reflect on that a little bit, if you unpack it, it's a pretty profound way, it's a pretty interesting lens through which to see the things that you do, and that's really one of the keys to what it is that we do. It's helping people see their process in a different way. When they see it in a different way, they behave in a different way. When they behave in a different way, they get different and better results. So notice that there's nothing in these definitions that is specific to manufacturing. Manufacturing is where these principles get their start, but the principles themselves are really agnostic in terms of whether you're making stuff or delivering a service or something else. So lean government then simply is these tools and methods applied to the things that people in government do. And I'll provide some examples of what that looks like. An even simpler way to express this, and maybe something to bring back to the people back in your home organizations, we've tried to condense this down even further into a very compact and powerful elevator speech. Just a few words that explains what Lean is, and to develop that, we've used these elements. Improvement in Lean is all about cycles of this systematic problem-solving process. You've probably heard of Plan, Do, Check, Act, yes? All right, so surprise, Lean is really nothing new. It's just taking something that maybe you've heard of before, but really applying it in a very intensive way. So Plan, Do, Check, Act is one of those things. The people in companies like Toyota and everybody who's followed from them, they're thinking Plan, Do, Check, Act all the time. So it's a systematic problem-solving process. We want to focus, yes, on providing more value for customers and doing that more efficiently, but that's just a very specific statement of a more general problem. What we're really trying to do is solve problems in the organization. Today it may be value delivery. Tomorrow it may be the efficiency of this or the economy of that. But we're all about solving problems. This is something that is also a total change of culture from, we say, shop floor to top floor across all functions of the organization. We're trying to change culture. And so everybody contributes to the organization's culture. Nobody is exempt. This is something that everybody participates in at all levels. And we'd like to touch the work that people do every minute of every day. This is something that in a work group somewhere, or maybe somebody sitting privately in their own cubicle, they're thinking differently about the work that they do. And as I said before, now that different thinking produces a different behavior and a different set of results. So if we condense that down, it turns into a little phrase, a mantra that we share with people and encourage them to think about what their future state looks like. What is it you're aiming for? What's the culture that you're trying to create? Well, that's for you to decide. But it's probably what's made you successful up to this point, blended together with a little bit more of systematically solving problems every day, or speed. So imagine what that can look like. If people do their work, but in addition to doing the work, they improve the work, everybody, every day, just a little bit. It's like compound interest, it adds up. So that's a little bit about that. Just a very brief history lesson. I don't want to go too deeply into this, but Lean actually gets its start post-World War II. It comes from the original thinking of the people at Toyota, the original thinking of Henry Ford, some ideas from the quality movement, and a program that the Americans developed called Training Within Industry. That was basically how it is that we took people, brought them into factories, got them trained up very quickly to to help support the war effort. All of that came together in the early Toyota production system. Toyota was looking for a management method. They experimented with many things. These were the things that were effective, and so they used them, and they discarded the things that did not. Now, if you fast forward into the 80s, in the early 80s there was a joint venture between Toyota and General Motors. So it was an effort called NUMMI out in California. It's today where Teslas are made. But back in the day, this was a joint venture that proved that these techniques were not just something that the Toyota people could do, anybody could do it. This is portable. It's a methodology that anybody can use to do what they do. And so from there, we start to see lean grow, not only in the number of companies that apply it, but also in the different functions. This goes off of the shop floor and it goes into the offices, and people discover, hey, everything that we're doing in this business can really have these lean techniques applied to it. And so we find that, again, lean applies everywhere. If you go into the modern day, we find a fully mature Toyota production system, the type of thing that is now codified and is now exportable to many different companies, and in fact many different companies are picking it up and using it. They call this the Toyota production system, and in these companies and others you can find blank production system, relabeled, modified a bit, but the basic concepts are the same ones that I just showed you before. Understanding value, value stream, flow, pull, perfection, blended together with our own corporate DNA. And so all across the country, all across the world, we find examples of how this is applied. And today, again, we find this now expanding more recently in the last few decades into government. So I just wanted to describe a little bit about the history that we see there. In lean government, the leaders there, the trailblazers, have been the United States Armed Forces. For about the last 20 years, there has been a very active, vibrant Lean Six Sigma program in every branch of the service, and it gets incredible results. They've been the trailblazers. Behind them, we find others who are kind of looking over their shoulder and taking their cue, and also applying this. So at the state level, the state of Iowa has had a lean program actually written into legislation, a lean government initiative, that has been in existence since 2001. So they have been around demonstrating this works for a very long time indeed. Others picked up the cue as well. This man, Graham Richard, the former mayor of Fort Wayne, wrote a book in 2006 describing how over 2 terms he brought lean to every single function in city government. And so it's a very good case study of how lean applies to all of the dozens of different departments and agencies that were in his city. And so we find that that's kind of a landmark that demonstrates, yes, it is possible to bring this to all the different things that we find in modern society. This was kind of codified and pulled together by the folks at the EPA, who've done a very good job of translating all of these case studies and examples into a set of templates and procedures and access to tools, published up there on their website, a very good set of starter kits available for lean education, lean government, and other efforts. All across the country, we see examples now. This map is a little bit dated, but well over half of the states in the United States have some type of a lean initiative going, and there's about a dozen that are just knocking it out of the park. They have it written into legislation. It is law. This is acknowledged as a proven way to systematically improve the things that government does, and they are doing very, very well. So that's a little bit about the history of both lean and lean government. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality applied some lean techniques about 12, 13 years ago, and these are some of the results that they got. These folks are not exceptions. In the whole bell curve of different returns on their effort, these are not the outliers. These are the common ones. And look at those percentages. So we're not talking about lean creating some small incremental improvements. Yes, some of the day-to-day improvements are designed and applied that way by the people who do the work, but in addition to that, major steps forward, major strides in improvement are possible. And so there are case studies like this and others that demonstrate this time and time again. There are large strides of improvement to be gained from lean government. Another example, Minnesota has now been doing this for about 8 years. They have a very active program between them and I'd say the state of Wisconsin. If you want to go online and take a look at some of the projects that they do, it's all out there as public information. You can see what department, when, what the target was, what they actually delivered, both financial and non-financial returns. Very impressive returns across many different states in the country. I had a chance to visit with the sheriff of Jacksonville, who won 4 terms, and he says this quite boldly, he won 4 terms because of lean government. Now, he didn't make an overt effort to educate the citizens in Jacksonville of what lean is. They just know this stuff gets results. And so it was a very people-centric, leader-driven transformation, very successful. And there are other examples that are out there. I just wanted to share with you one quick video snippet. This is from an organization called the Toyota Production System Support Center. The folks at Toyota actually do pro bono work, helping governments and others, and nonprofits, organizations, for-profit companies all across the country to understand and apply lean principles. And this is one quick clip of some of the work that they did with New York State. Let me cue this up.
Day to day, the meat and potatoes of state government is operating agencies and operating them well. And there is a lot of work to do.
There's a perception of the way government functions and that it's very slow.
As a result, people lose confidence in its ability to deliver.
It was a recommendation from the governor that we do a program called Lean to look at the way the operations run and being able to deliver services more efficiently.
In New York, we like to do everything with the biggest and the best, and Toyota was really the grandfather of lean, so we were thrilled that they would work with us entirely on pro bono basis.
Toyota has been sharing the Toyota production system with organizations for almost 25 years as a way of giving back to the community where we do our business. We were very eager to see the potential for what TPS can do in government and administrative type processes.
We got a lot of feedback that licensing processes were difficult, specifically in the healthcare area.
Our first project with Toyota is really to speed up the process that hospitals or nursing homes can use to open a newly created or renovated space for patients and services.
Before the process, it was all paper-based. Things would get lost and misplaced. We couldn't really tell what people were doing.
TPS is all about engaging people to surface and solve problems to improve performance.
Community Health Network.
Once they are ready, we will approve.
Okay. The visualization board helps us to track our projects going through the process. So if it gets stuck at a certain spot, we can see that immediately on the board and address it.
The process of scheduling the surveys and the back and forth of the documents and what documents do we need to produce was very frustrating.
So we had some specific hospital trainings on, these are the top 10 things, and this is the most frequently found item. The other piece that was introduced was that documents required for the inspection are sent in advance.
People knew what to expect, what documents needed to be produced, and under what schedule. It was a much more efficient process, ever more customer service oriented.
It was about 137 days from the time they confirmed the schedule until it was approved. It's now down to 28.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited you were able to make it here. In that first project, that's where I learned really the full power of TPS. The second project, I had a chance to then coach others, what we call Empire Belts, or people that are learning TPS.
We completely mapped the process.
We started thinking about expanding. They worked on daycare centers, food service inspections.
So in New York, there's a real movement that's taken hold. There's been over 8,000 people trained with 38 agencies involved in the program, and we've completed over 400 projects.
We're delivering these licenses or these services in less than half the time that we were doing before.
We are out there trying to keep the public safe, protected, and healthy. And learning new mechanisms like process improvement are really critical to make these things happen.
This project has opened my eyes to a new frontier for government.
The opportunity is really endless. It relies on the people on the front lines to get excited and to want to change their daily jobs. And as a result, taxpayers and citizens can feel that government works.
So I think that's one very compelling example, and there are others that are like these. So again, this lean stuff for government, it gets results. You might be wondering how it is that a small group of consultants can create all of these transformations across government, and the answer is that they don't. The outside consultants are really just the spark that starts the fire, and that carries forward across the department or agency. So the leverage is the people who do the work. The outside consultants are educators, are facilitators, are trainers, but really it's an opportunity to train the trainer. It's all about developing the problem-solving capabilities of people to do this continuously themselves in their own work. And so one former Toyota friend of mine said it this way. He said, yeah, you know, this company is really all about building the problem-solving capabilities of people. And right now, we just happen to make cars. So that's a very different way to see things. And it underscores what it is that we're trying to achieve with lean and when we talk about lean transformation. Very quickly, I just wanted to kind of describe how it is that something like that gets done in these steps. What does one of these steps look like? And so the term that we have for that is something called a Kaizen event, or Kaizen, continuous improvement, this Japanese term. And it's really a group of people, cross-functional team that's put together to focus on systematically improving a target process. And so a suggested timeline for a 5-day event you see up here, but it's really just stepping through that systematic process. And in broad strokes, it looks like the steps, the 8 steps that you see here. And again, this is the type of thing that people in both the private and the public sector do. An example here are the folks in Ohio who are working on a Kaizen event here. And you can see that it's a hive of activity, a lot of working stuff to understand the process, map it out. Why does it behave the way that it does? What are we going to experiment with to improve the performance? How do we gather this knowledge that we've created around the process and use that as a springboard for the next things that we want to improve? So this information and most of the other things that we're covering here, it's all up on the websites for the various organizations that I'm mentioning. So there are many resources here in the state. You have private sector businesses that are very willing to help. You have a few lead adopters here in several departments and agencies that are exploring with this, including our hosts here at Maryland Department of the Environment. And as a nonprofit organization, we're here to help as well. We do a number of things each year. Right now, as I speak, we have a Lean Facilitator certification program that has in its student body right now 5 people from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, 1 person here from Maryland Department of the Environment, another from Department of Corrections. Last year, we had people from Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation, as well as EPA. So we're demonstrating that these are learnable techniques. You can apply them to good use inside many different levels and jurisdictions of government. So we've endeavored to bring many different examples here into the state. This has been a concerted effort of ours since, as I said, 2009. Our first Lean Government Conference dedicated to this topic was in 2011. Since that time, we've brought in, as you can see, many experts, many practitioners with years of experience who are coming here to provide inspiration and information to get things started here in this state. So there are many things to learn in terms of doing this well. I have just summarized here some of the things that are keys, we think, to doing this in government. And if you see something up here that strikes your interest, please do take note. We'll provide some opportunities for Q&A, as I said, after our next presentation. But lean thinking is something that applies to everything that you do in government and outside. You need to be successful with this, you need to think of this not as a discrete program, something with a beginning, middle, and an end, something that you're going to start doing and then at some point stop doing. This is on the level of a lifestyle change. So if you think about yourself aiming to lose weight or stop smoking or get more exercise or eat right, those are lifestyle changes. And by mentioning those things, it begins to imply how difficult this can be. But that's why it's worth doing. It is a challenge, and the challenges they deliver enormous benefit, as we've seen. So these lifestyle changes, they are not simple and easy recipes that deliver limited results. These are major changes that deliver major results. And I think it's important to be mindful of that. For some of your folks back at the office who may hear that term lean and recoil a bit because they think this is something that equates to downsizing or right-sizing, nothing could be further from the truth. When we say that people are our most important asset, in many organizations that's just wallpaper. It's a saying. In lean organizations, it's true. And it's a recognition that processes don't improve themselves. People improve processes. And people need to have the security and the motivation to apply these techniques. And that means that lean is not really something that can be used at all for the purposes of headcount reduction or right-sizing. The two really don't mix well together at all. What we're trying to do, again, is to create a culture where everybody not only does the work, but improves the work. And this is something that really is leader-driven. There is no lean transformation without lean leadership. This is not something that senior leaders say, it sounds great, you go do it. This is something that involves everyone, and that's important. And again, it's going back to that mantra. Think very carefully about what we said before, systematically solving problems, everybody, every day. What would it look like? What would it look like if everybody, every day, people all across your department or agency just made some little improvement to make tomorrow, working there tomorrow, just a little bit better than today was? It's like compound interest. It adds up. So I hope we've provided you with a good foundation. For those of you who perhaps have never heard of lean and lean government before, this should serve as a quick dip. If you have other questions about how this all works and how it works for you and your agency or department, then I'll look forward to our question and answer session. Thanks very much for the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. Thanks.